Sally. He's Jamie Wadley, and this is Inside Exec. We're continuing our discussion with Dr Riza Kadilar, and in this second part of the discussion, we cover quite a range of topics about what inclusion really means, about being fit for a job or belonging in a job, so fitting in or belonging in a particular work, and also about the importance of privilege and what that really means on a day-to-day basis, not in terms of finance, but in terms of just things we take for granted that are actually a privilege to be able to do or to have.
Do you think that the introduction of AI more into the workplace is going to affect that feeling of inclusion in those disparate workplaces?
It's a fascinating area. On one hand, there are so many research and also people claiming that, loneliness is the biggest challenge in today's, especially in the Western world, whatever you name it, like in the North, South, whatever, the way you define it. But at the same time, we also know that especially for the new generations, they do socialize much more efficiently and really socializing on their gaming online or whatever the way they communicate. And in between, for example, the other day, I had a great privilege to meet with Daniel Pink last week in London. So we had a nice exchange, the writer of Drive. So I like this book. And then he showed me, and then he published, I think, the graphs about how much time we spend, depending on the age limit and everything. And it showed that at the end of the day, we all spend 1 hour with maybe old colleagues or spouses or whatever you name it. But the part of being lonely really picks up. And that part is, I think, now is being captured, or the target for all these AI digital companions. So there's a new concept of these digital companions, and maybe they will turn into a robot or whatever gradually, I don't know. But even in my family, in my daughter, sometimes she finds it more kind of comfortable to talk to her, whatever ChatGPT, rather than talking to another person. So is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? Is it human? Is it human? I don't know. We evolve, we change. So this aspect. And in the workplace, I think, again, this is not a scientific thing. It's just my opinion, okay? But I think we are at the start of something big. It could happen really big. So the whole work could be disrupted. And if they claim turn out to be true, really many jobs will be eliminated. They will be replaced by maybe new jobs, but that's a very big shift that may happen in a very short time. So that's why how AI will help inclusion or not, I don't know on personal level. But one thing I know, and that's one of the reasons I wrote this book, AI is a machine learning. So whatever you make it available, there's no kind of real sense making, but it learns from the patterns. And if we don't really generate enough diverse patterns in the digital world, one day, and maybe this one day is already today, I don't know, when the algorithms believe that there's one pattern that dominates all better than others, we can really kind of go into a very unwanted place, because the richness, the diversity in cultures, humanity, people, personalities, everything, this makes us human. And we know with more diverse, humanity managed to overcome diverse problems. We are more resilient with our diversity and everything. But machine learning, believing that or learning that, one way is better than others, then we may put ourselves under an unnecessarily very wrong place. So that's why I also encourage many cultures, non-English speakers, especially smaller countries and everything, to produce more and more and more document and, the digital footprint with their diversity, with their way of doing things and everything, so that we should create a digital world with the whole colors of the real world.
Yes.
It's interesting.
Very much contributing to the learning of the machines so that they are represented. Their thoughts, their views, their culture, as you say, is represented. Going back to the questions, is there one industry that you've worked with that manages inclusion better than others?
That's rather a difficult question, because maybe it's not industry-specific debate.
Okay.
It's more kind of work. But one anecdotal data that I have, my based on my observations, the gaming industry, the computer games, they seem to be more agile in the way they deal with diverse cultures, backgrounds, and everything. Because maybe the way they create new ways of life, or the words they create and everything. So I believe there's even they find it easier to include with people with different backgrounds and perspectives and everything, and with different technical skills. So that area I find fascinating, that they do a great job. Incumbents, the legacy, big industries, they all find it a bit difficult to change, especially the regulated industries like utilities or finance or healthcare and everything. Even though there's a big push, because at the end of the day, our stakeholders are so diverse. So we got to also create an inclusive work environment with diverse people to work with. But there's a legacy. And the more strong culture you have in a company culture, more you make it difficult to include all the differences, because your own way for success and everything.
Yeah.
These are all the big debates. So that's why big companies, well-established companies, well-managed companies, they may find it a bit more difficult to be inclusive enough with diversity.
Mm.
What I'm hearing is that the creative industries find it easier to manage the diversity and the inclusion than those that have a long history, that do things a certain way, that, as you said yourself, train their people or choose their people through university courses. You must have the MBA, you must have gone to this school or that school, or you don't really know what we're like, you don't know our culture. So should we be going back to the education system and looking at diversity and inclusion being more important in those programs when we're looking at developing leaders and looking at giving people the bits of paper that they need to go into the industries that they choose?
I don't know. On one hand, reflective practice, reflective thinking, reflecting on your experiences. This is the way we learn, and this is the way human being kind of progress. But in the education system, how much space we allow for reflection, I don't know. I know some programs, for example, the International Baccalaureate IB program, they really focus on the value of reflection. But still, for many countries, it's a kind of race. It's you gotta make it or leave it or whatever. So that's why it's very difficult to see, because reflective practice, reflective thinking allows you to be aware of your emotions and be aware of your emotional triggers. And once you're aware of this, you may have a debate whether you feel included or not, or what you exclude deliberately or automatically, your biases, your unconscious biases, your talk patterns, all those things that makes life maybe very difficult for others or for yourself. You are aware. But we don't have enough reflective practice in early schooling age. Maybe in very early age, yes, but then in K-12, we kind of lose it. We go for the other basics like mathematics and everything maybe. Maybe there's space in the education system to look into that.
I know that in this country there are a number of initiatives to allow very young children, so in that K1 and 2, to have a period of time in the day that is their meditation time, it is their reflective time. And I think starting patterns at that age is an interesting way to let them know that it's okay to have that, what we call quiet time or solitude time, and to then have that as part of their framework for coping mechanisms. So just an interesting area to look at, because we have talked to many other guests over our time about leadership in general and leadership skills. And I think to a person, they've said that we don't start developing leaders early enough and not giving them the skills early enough to be good leaders. And I guess this is another area where we need to start thinking about it as well.
Important part of my book is dedicated to the leadership, how inclusion kind of attached. And there are very basic paradigm changes. For example, when I was raised, we were raised with the Superman kind of approach. Like, one man who knows it all can change the world, the Hercules and everything. Today, maybe this LLMs, the Gen AI, whatever, they know everything, but we can't really expect anyone to know all the answers. Mm-hmm. So in my time, leader is the person that you really ask for the answer. Today, it's more like the leader knows how to ask the right question. Mm-hmm. It's a big change, but, subtle. In the early age of my banking career, we were taught all this negotiation, pitching, presentation, whatever, the convincing, persuasion, whatever kind of trainings. Today, listening is more important. What to listen, how to listen, where to listen, whatever. These are even more important. For example, we were kind of raised to thinking that, once there's a success, it's the leader's success and the team, whatever. But also your competitors has a contribution. If they lose, they're also part of your success, isn't it? So today, success doesn't belong to the leader. It belongs to the whole system. Now, we are more kind of ecosystem thinking rather than the verticals. So these are all very basic change happened with technology, of course, but also with the way we get organized as humanity.
I was interested when I was doing the research when you were talking about including stakeholders as well. And I think that's an area that we completely disregard when we're talking about leadership. We really focus on the immediate area. And so I would like to hear how you think that we can include stakeholders in this process that we're going through.
Very practical approach. We do it in Gestalt coaching and everything, studies and everything, empty chair. When Jeff Bezos did it, it became kind of more popular. It's very straightforward. You leave an empty chair in your meeting table, okay? And then you debate, you discuss whatever. But before you really make a decision, you just give yourself a moment and you ask, whose voice didn't we hear yet? Mm-hmm. Somebody, a group of people, or concepts, or whatever, that you didn't really take into account so far. And then this empty chair represents that group, that person. Yeah. And then you bring that perspective in the debate. You repeat it a couple of times, and then you have a much more kind of inclusive way of addressing the issue. Because those people that you don't hear in the system, their voice, these voices kind of becomes the headache sooner or later. Because they are part of the game, even if you see it or not. So that's a very practical exercise. Before you conclude your debate, just think, whose voice don't we hear now? Can we bring them in the room?
I like that. Listen now or get shouted at later.
The last question that we sent to you was about when in leadership development should we begin focusing on inclusion? And I think we've probably covered that sufficiently. But one of the other things that I was intrigued by, because I do have a human resources background over 40 plus years, is I heard you talk about job descriptions very briefly. And that fascinates me because I think that job descriptions are probably the biggest hurdle to choosing the right people for a particular position. And I'm not in favour of them. I haven't been for a long time. I wondered whether you thought there was something else, because organisations rely on them, recruiters rely on them. Is there some other outline that we should be using that isn't particularly a job description or a job outline?
My contribution to the literature is still limited, so I won't be able to really stretch everything and start something new. But a couple of things. First of one is two words, one fit in and the other one belong. And I think Brené Brown puts it so nicely. So nobody want to fit into a box. And this is what we expect from people. When you have the job description, you create a box and you want people to fit in this box. And their additional characters, attributes or personalities, whatever, they got to let it out. They just want to bring whatever expected to this box. On the other hand, the word belong, be as you are, bring everything you got in the workplace. This is what we want, what especially the youngsters want. Why do I really kind of, maybe you remember all this, the dress codes, they were part of this creating strong culture because humanity really progressed so well. And even before, like early days, Dr. Harari says Homo sapiens was not the most either fastest or strongest or whatever, but the one who knew how to get organized, collaborate. So that's how Homo sapiens win and conquered the world. The same applies for creating these strong cultures, unified cultures, so that people can get organized easier, faster. Thinking system, dress codes, behaviors, education systems, and everything. But with everything we talk about, this technology change, the demographics, and the whole new way of thinking, resilience, thanks to pandemic and everything, when you want to kind of co-create with people who are not like you, then this old thinking is a kind of barrier. So that's why more we allow people to bring who they are to the work rather than fitting into a box. I think we see more and more creative, resilient, trust-based work environments. But is there a proper way a new way of telling all the recruiters to do it? The one way is to get aligned on values. What really makes you motivated, what you believe in life that's important, whatever that in your daily life you jump out of bed in the morning, this kind of very basic things.
Yeah.
If we get aligned on our values and our motivators and everything, maybe that's another way of looking into creating a work environment with diversity, but also that will also bring the feeling of inclusion. But again, we don't have enough empirical data to claim, but anecdotally and instinctively, I think we're moving that way.
Yeah. As you said, with the gaming industry, it is a dynamic industry for the reasons that there's so many different skills that have to be brought to the table. So why would you say, I want someone to fit in this box if you can get someone to come to, and belong, as you say, who has other skills that you mightn't know you need until you find them?
And in the startup domain, in scale-ups, in disruptive technologies, you even don't have job description because things do evolve so rapidly, so fast. But the mistake, whenever they kind of raise Series A or B, because I'm also an investor, I do invest in scale-up or potential scale-up companies. The minute they find the money, they want to create an organigram. They want to recruit the chief marketing officer, chief investment officer, whatever
Get all the titles.
But why? But it's the way we learn. It's difficult to learn.
A hard habit to break.
Yeah.
Well, we've had a lovely long conversation with you this morning. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to share with our listeners?
Wow, there are, of course, what we should be covering more. Maybe privileges.
Okay.
When we say privilege, we think about status, money, blah, blah, all those things, isn't it? But what is more striking, if you are using your right-handed people, they are privileged. Because even the door handles are designed for people using their right hand, okay?
Let me just say this is very relevant because Jamie is left-handed.
Oh, really? Okay. Jamie, is it correct? It's...
Indeed, it is.
It is. And then you even don't notice. The problem with privileges, they are a problem when you don't feel them. So when you believe that it's natural, I can walk. Luckily, I can still walk. It's a privilege. Many people cannot walk. And even really, my wife had a kind of ankle problem. The whole summer was like hell. So it's so difficult. So no system is really designed equally. Or being man, woman in many societies, being tall, short, whatever you name it. Many things we take for granted. Education, for example, is amazing. Education, we strive for it. We work hard for it. It's a kind of, we deserve to get whatever the privilege that comes with it. But at the end of the day, should it be at the expense of other people being excluded? And it's a question. It's a real question because I think those people who are really the most endangered ones are the experts. I wouldn't like to be an expert of anything today because all the technologies will attack you first. They claim even more than you do because they can collect all the data, blah, blah. You still say, I have wisdom, experience, whatever, but at the end of the day, being expert. And then all education, bringing all the expertise and status, it's also a barrier for inclusion. And if you don't include new ways of thinking, if you are not open enough for change, and if you're not open to change, it's a tough life because things do change around you, so you got to adapt. So that's why I think privileges is something that we should be really thinking deeply and be aware of, even the very simplest things that we don't feel like a privilege, but they are. And they should be a barrier for inclusion, because then it will block our growth, our adaptability, our change.
Yeah, just as you're saying, and I'm thinking across the board, it's a privilege in this country because there's such distances, to be close to a shopping centre. It's a privilege to have a reliable internet service, which Jamie and I, neither of us have. And yet, we have businesses that we have to run. And so it covers such a broad area. I'm really glad that you brought it up, because it will make our listening audience think a little bit more about the privileges that they do take for granted across the board.
So thank you.
Anything else, Jamie, from you today?
No, I've enjoyed this immensely, I must admit. So it's been a real pleasure. It really has been good talking to you, and some good takeaways there for me. So thank you.
Thank you very
much. And I thank you too. We will allow you to finish your very long day. And we do appreciate the time that you've found to share with our listeners. As I said, if we get some questions, we'll pass them on to you. We will have all of your details so people can contact you directly. But for now, thank you for joining us. I'm Kim Bailey. He's Jamie Wadley. We've been talking with Dr. Riza Kadilar, and this is Inside Exec.